TNA is an awesome subject for a video game because it is total nonstop action wrestling. I mean, what could be better?
It focuses on high-flying things that, aren't all that humanly possible, it would seem. And so we can take that in a video game and kind of just go a little bit further with it.
We want to bring back some things that were cool a few generations ago, and we want to add a new twist to them. The technology's there to really make things fun, fast, and responsive, and we want to take full advantage.
You got the action, you got the, all the great pyro and all effects that they got going. It was born to be a video game.
TNA wrestlers are a very special breed compared to some of the other wrestlers around. You'll notice that they're very acrobatic.
Flying through the air and performing just these precise maneuvers where one wrong move could totally end a career, that's what makes you want to play TNA. It makes you feel like a superstar to play a game like this.
Making the best TNA game possible really comes from knowing the brand, knowing what's exciting about it, and then just taking all the other expectations everyone has as far as fighting games go and bringing that all together into this one experience that is just, amazing for the player.
It all starts with the tech. You need some way of displaying the art on your game system. So that's an engine that puts it up there, that moves it, that makes it so when you hit a button, something happens. So you build the foundation on the tech. Then you have artists create characters, you have artists create environments, you have animators animate the characters, and then you have designers who put those animations on button presses, on joystick movements, things like that. And then you have put together gameplay. It's kind of the same formula for everything, just different lengths of time and different amounts of art.
Can you dig this sucker? We're in the character art department right now where they are creating the most authentic, the most spot-on wrestlers designed in any wrestling game in professional wrestling history. And it's happening right here at Midway LA.
How does my character look in the game? Check it out. It looks amazing, like the rest of the game. It's gonna blow your guys' minds.
We take tons of reference photos for the characters in our game, basically to get that incredible detail that you can only see, with the photographs.
And the camera, it's always looking, following me on. First, they took a bunch of pictures of me, close-ups of my face, of my gimmicks and my wrestling costume.
And it's not just for reference. We actually use those photographs as texture maps for the 3D models. And we apply those actual photos of their characters onto our 3D models for their skin. So then you get all the little moles and nuances, all the cuts, Abyss, stars all over him from all the matches he's done.
It's kind of funny. When we did AJ's reference photos, he had accidentally gotten punched in the mouth by Joe the day before, which split his lip open. If you look at AJ in the game, his lip split open in that same spot. When he saw it, he was blown away. He couldn't believe we went to that amount of detail.
Here in the character art department, they are working round the clock to make sure you get the most authentic, most detailed versions of TNA stars in this video game. And as you can see, you're getting all the colorful splendor of the Black Machismo, Jay Lethal. In fact, I'm wondering if he's going to reach out and tag me in here pretty soon.
With the head scanner, we had to do some fun stuff with the wrestlers. That was actually pretty neat. Because the scanner wasn't really great for picking up hair, we had every wrestler wearing a latex bald cap. They all enjoyed that.
They also scanned my face, which is a thing that looked like I was at a grocery store checkout, but then a digital picture of my face came up, and it was, it blew my mind. It was like, as he was scanning, it was coming up on the computer that I could see, and it was all really kind of surreal to me.
That is me, Homicide. I am even a badass in a video game.
We do the head scans to get the likenesses of the characters pinpoint, and it makes it very fast for us to get the 3D models up and running on machines and really spend that extra time that we have left over to put in those fine details that we're doing.
The reason our characters look so distinct is, the amount of time and effort that we put into making them as realistic looking as possible.
Yeah, the characters look really realistic purely because of the way we're actually lighting them and the materials that we're using on them. We've got a special material, a rim light, which actually emphasizes the characters and brings them to life. And we've also got a very particular sweat map that's actually on the characters, which also makes them look more real and brings them to life in the game.
After the character's built and textured, the next
step to get him into the game is the rigging. And so what we do is we put in virtual bones, which is just like the skeleton that you have in your body. The bones, the way they move and the way that they're animated is through motion capture.
I'm here in the animation department where the very moves, the signature moves you see every week on TNA Impact are now being put into this game. And as you can see from AJ Styles and the infamous Hurricane Rana that he does perfectly, it is captured perfectly and now implemented into the game perfectly. Unbelievable.
Capturing motions with the wrestlers is my favorite part of the game.
Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Jay Lethal, Sanjay Dutt, Christopher Daniels.
They've been the most fun performers to work with. They really understand the importance of this game and want the game to look and feel right. So for them, it's important to what happens in the ring translate to what happens in our studio and then gets into the game.
The phenomenal AJ Styles.
AJ Styles is so quick, so smooth, so agile. And how can you not love watching this guy wrestle? He'll show you something you haven't seen every time he's in the ring.
This is AJ Styles, making sure that Midway's TNA Impact video game is phenomenal.
Introducing from Bollywood, Bombay, he's the original player from the Himalaya, Sanjay Dutt.
Talk about speed? Without a doubt, the fastest man in the history of the X Division.
We need to work with a lot of wrestlers at once because you can't have the same guys doing these moves over and over again. They'll break. They're not used to doing these moves over and over. So we cycle people through. Nice. We have like 4 guys at a time in the motion studio, and they each kind of switch off doing the moves to each other so that they don't know 2 people or 1 person takes too much of the damage, because it does wear you out, man. The moves, the hardest game you could ever do motion capture-wise is a wrestling game.
He is the Samoan submission machine, Samoa Joe.
We're working on TNA Impact, having a good time. Getting everything captured the right way, because let's face it, if you're going to be at home, you're going to be playing our game, you want it to look as real as possible. So I'm going to make sure that there's one thing that you know when you're playing this game, is that Joe is going to kill you.
He was undefeated for 18 months here in TNA, and he's still one of the greatest wrestlers in the world.
In the year-and-a-half undefeated streak of Samoa Joe, he gained so many victories with the Muscle Buster and the rear naked choke that he calls the Kakina Clutch. Introducing from the City of Angels, the Fallen Angel, Christopher Daniels.
The key word here is precision. This is a finely tuned athlete who makes calculated moves.
To give the player the sensation of these huge impacts with these moves, whether they be punches or throws or anything like that, the other wrestler has to really sell the move.
The sells are what people go to see. They want to see people get hit, get hurt. You know, a really awesome attack animation with a mediocre sell reaction is going to come across with no impact. What makes the impact feel so good is a great attack, a great punch, and then the guy getting hit really making you believe that it happened. Throwing his body weight back, landing on the ground hard. That all comes from experienced professionals in the motion capture studio.
Fans, we wanted to deliver the true, authentic TNA wrestling experience, and no better way to express that than with the Ultimate X, the high-wire free-for-all, an original in TNA wrestling and a very important part of the Impact video game. Through motion capture technology, we have now implemented this into the very video game that you're seeing right now.
Ultimate X may very well be the most identifiable feature of TNA Impact. It's so revolutionary and so new and so fresh.
We worked with the TNA ring builder. We had him come out to our studio in Chicago and custom build an Ultimate X ring for us.
You know, one of the biggest challenges of making Ultimate X in the gameplay is It's just attaching hands to ropes and making it look real and cool.
We've never done anything like this before. Trying to shimmy along cables, the physics that are involved with bouncing up and down on these cables, being struck from different angles, trying to unhook this belt at the intersection hanging over the ring.
I think that, you know, the motions that we got from those guys and how we're implementing it in the game is going to be a way to play a wrestling game that nobody's ever seen before. And I think the game mechanic of being up there plus being on the ground and trying to get guys up there and get people off of there and whatever is really cool, and I think people will really enjoy it.
You know, a video game is not just pretty pictures. It's great sound. And right here at TNA Impact, the video game, they're working around the clock to make sure you're getting the authentic sound you hear when you watch TNA Wrestling. From Mike Tna and Don West to the chants in the crowd of the Impact Zone, you're going to hear it all, and you're going to hear it perfectly with TNA Impact, the video game.
And Mike Tna and Don West are, of course, our commentators for our game.
Introducing from Elizabeth, New Jersey, Jay Lethal.
He's one of those guys you just have to watch out for. His speed and power make him dangerous. Showstopper! Showstopper! Showstopper by Eric Young!
Eric Young in control. Oh yeah, he's gonna go for it. Here it comes. It's the neck breaker by Eric Young.
They just said these things so many times, it comes so natural to them to do this. And then they play off each other just perfect. It's so natural for them to have that, you know, excitement and energy in their voices, and very little directing towards those guys at all. And it's a dream.
We put Christy Hemme in there also. She looks fantastic as a three-dimensional model.
There you are.
It's me. Weird.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
It's digital you.
Yeah, that's really weird. The character looks very lifelike. It's got every inch of me done in the game, including all my tattoos, everything. So you definitely get a very personalized Christy Hemme in this game.
I totally got this covered. I'm an old pro at this stuff. You bet. 2 years of drama club.
Eric Young was in here with Christy Hemme not too long ago. He's every bit as funny in person as he is on the show. Really, really soft-spoken guy, but once again, another TNA guy who comes in, nails his line.
Can you keep him away? Are you wearing my perfume?
I love you.
Oh, creepy. That's it, this interview's over.
Not only in the TNA Impact video game do you get to play all of the great TNA stars, but you also get to see me.
Jeremy Borash is a huge favorite with the fans, so having him in the game, I think, just, you know, is really cool.
Introducing from Detroit, Michigan, he is the War Machine, Rhino. This is Shark Boy. This is the Icon, Sting. He is the Samoan Submission Machine, Samoa Joe. From Detroit, Michigan, this is Chris Sabin.
The easy thing with Jeremy is this is what he does all day long. You know, no one does it better than him, so it's quite easy to work with him. Every take we get from him is great. The difficult part is just selecting which is the best one to use.
If you watch TNA Impact on TV, you are very familiar with the Impact Zone in Orlando, Florida. But the good thing about the TNA Impact video game is we're not just taking you to the Impact Zone in Orlando, Florida. We're taking you to Las Vegas. We're taking you to Japan. We're taking you to London, England. And we're even taking you to Washington, D.C., the home of the Freedom Center.
The TNA Orlando Arena is really the home of TNA. It's one of the arenas we had to get really right because all the fans know it.
Recreating the Impact Zone was a very involved and actually pretty exciting process. We had Sal down in Orlando at the studio for 2 days with their photographer. They even got up in a crane to take top-down shots of the mat and the floor and everything that's there. And what ensued after that was just rebuilding the whole thing piece by piece, trying to get every detail looking exactly right. We spent weeks watching the show, just trying to familiarize ourselves as much as possible with what the look and feel of it was and what the atmosphere of it was. And then we just went through and, you know, built everything down to the finest detail, down to the stitching on the aprons, every little wrinkle on the turnbuckles, actual blood stains that really exist on the mat.
When developing the Mexico Arena, we really wanted something that felt like you were in the rural part of Mexico.
It's set up in this small Mexican town, and they've kind of just patched this whole event together with whatever they had. If you look at the map that the wrestlers fight on, it looks like it was sewn together out of potato sacks or burlap or something like that. They've just got like these makeshift barricades made out of 2x4s with canvases and tarps thrown over them.
You know, not everybody starts out a superstar in professional wrestling. In TNA Impact, the video game, you got to start at the very bottom. Climb your way to the top. And before you make it to the big arenas in London and Japan and the Impact Zone in Orlando, Florida, you can start out here in the Armory, where things are tough and you got to climb your way to the top.
Yeah, the Armory is actually, again, an idea that Samoa Joe gave us. He told us that a lot of guys train there. A lot of people start off and they do these indie events in places like Armories, and they just set up a ring in there and they have, you know, all the people in there training and the soldiers and the troops are in there kind of watching, and I think it was a great idea, and it adds authenticity, and again, it's part of our story mode, but it's something that was based on real life.
So we also have an arena in England. And of course, it's my personal favorite. I'm English, so I'm looking forward to playing that one myself.
We spent a lot of time kind of looking at different venues in England, and one of those that really stood out to us was Royal Albert Hall. Now, of course, you know, we're not going to build a Royal Albert Hall, but we liked the kind of royal colors that were used there. There was lots of reds and golds and felt, and that's kind of what we went for with that.
So wrestling's really big in Japan. We wanted to build an arena in Japan to just kind of capture that whole vibe.
And basically, they just love lights, they love neon, they love lots of color. And that's what we went with when we built the entrances for Japan. We had giant neon lights everywhere, and they just, you know, they just love to light stuff up. With the aprons and with the mat, we actually have a lot of people who speak Japanese in the studio, so we spent a bit of time coming up with cool stuff to put on to the aprons and the mat, stuff like that.
The Freedom Center was a great opportunity to incorporate patriotic themes.
And our idea for this was just, you know, Americana. If you look at the entrances, one of them has got the American Eagle, you know, a giant sculpture of the American Eagle, kind of like, you know, perched in a very predatory pose over the arena as the wrestlers are coming out. The other side has got the Statue of Liberty, and our idea with that is as they come in, there will just be these giant red, white, and blue pyrotechnics firing up on either side of the Statue of Liberty.
The Freedom Center is a massive place. I mean, if you see the crowd in it, it's huge, and it's really one of these places that any wrestler would give their right arm to wrestle in.
Vegas is everything you expect from a trip to Vegas, or a venue that happens in Vegas. The lights, the spectacle.
So the Eclipse Casino in Vegas is probably the biggest, most grandiose part of our game. We did steal the idea from another one of Midway's games, which is something we'll expand upon later. But this is the true Vegas experience, and it's going to be really, really cool. Think heavyweight title match.
I'm over here now in the Advanced Technology Group, and what's interesting about this is the name of the game is Total Nonstop Action at 60 frames per second. You need it for that much action in the ring.
For a fighting game, combat game, whatever you want to call wrestling or any of that, 60 frames a second is everything.
The players want a responsive feel to the game. A lot of wrestling games that are currently on the market, they play rather slowly. They lag behind. By the time you hit the button press, by the time your character does it, there's a disconnect there that it doesn't feel right.
If it took a few frames or a few milliseconds for something to happen, then that's the difference between seeing a punch coming and countering it to being punched.
60 frames a second is huge because it gives that fast response time. The user wants a fast response to what he's pressing on the pad, and basically TNA is all about that. The whole fighting mechanic, response time is all about the 60 frames a second. So our goals technically on TNA are actually to make the best possible game we can, but also to push the platforms to its ultimate potential. That's pushing the GPU, that's also pushing the CPU to its limit, to make the game flow at 60 frames per second.
So we spent a lot of time working on being able to do lighting that goes right across the crowd, spotlights that move across the crowd, colors. We can project the TNA logo.
With the projected textures, which are basically textures that rotate around the environment, it brings the characters to life to actually make them feel like they're part of the environment. And the same textures actually flow over the crowd as well.
We are now in the programming department where they work hard to create the tools necessary for the designers to put the action in total nonstop action.
The process for programming really on TNA has been treating programming as a service group, I'd say, for design and art.
They'd work with the designers and artists to figure out what tools the designers and artists needed and how they needed them built. The idea here is to give them the tools so they can do their work.
So we're using the Unreal editor as our base engine. On top of that, we've built a lot of tools into that. A lot of it's been sharing throughout all of Midway. We've taken tools from many other games, including Stranglehold, which gave us a lot of our base tools. From that, we've edited them a lot to make them work better for TNA and what we actually need in our wrestling game.
Everything you do in a video game requires programming support. Nothing is free, nothing is easy.
I am now in the design area where these designers work day and night, meticulously fine-tuning what the animators give them to provide the most authentic experience in gameplay possible.
For TNA, the designers have a huge job, and we have a big design team.
Well, the design for a game like TNA is broken down into 3 different phases. The first phase is the pre-production, where we really kind of go out and figure out what are the wrestling states, what are the moves that need to be motion captured. Once all that data has been motion captured, then we go into phase 2, which is implementing these moves. And that's the most fun phase of any game, is actually seeing a move for the very first time, getting it in, jumping in the air, landing, getting the reactions. Phase 3 is where we then go back and refine those moves and kind of tie it all together, make sure the damage amounts are correct, make sure that the opponents get stunned at the right frequency, make sure the UI and the graphics are all polished.
We've tried to recreate a lot of the feel with TNA by our camera system and mirroring a lot of what they do on the television show.
Everything that we do with our cameras keeps the action in tight, up close, as cool as it can be. Our characters look fantastic, and they really look like the TNA guys. So, you want to see that up close.
We have a normal gameplay camera that kind of follows the action, tracks the action. But as the users do more intricate moves, we get different camera angles and different flybys of the actual animations that really bring these things to life and show you a different side of these moves.
In TNA Impact, the video game, a great feature is the ability to create your own wrestler. And when you go into battle, it's always important to look your best. And they provide the tools for you to do just that.
We feel that Create a Wrestler is one of the big aspects of wrestling games.
You'll choose a story mode, or you can actually just create one from the front end. When you go to actually create your wrestler, you're choosing their look, their overall wrestling style, and then based off of how you play the game and making money, advancing through the story, things like that, you'll be able to purchase new moves that they'll be able to do within that wrestling style.
From a user experience, it's going to be pretty cool. I mean, they'll be able to make themselves. It'll be a lot of fun for the player.
Well, anyone who watches TNA Impact on television knows that a lot happens behind the scenes. Not everything just happens inside the ring. In fact, a lot happens backstage. And through story mode, these cinemas are being brought to life right before our very own eyes. A lot of interaction going on backstage with the TNA stars as part of the TNA Impact video game.
The storyline of the TNA game is an interesting one. It's based around your created character. We want the players to create a character themselves and then progress through our story.
You start off on top. You cross paths with some bad guys. I don't want to give away their names, but basically you the wrong people in the TNA organization
and end up with your loss of memory, dumped in a gutter somewhere in Tijuana, Mexico, and your face is, wrapped up in bandages. You wake up that way.
You have to go get plastic surgery done, and you want to work your way back into TNA. Prove that you are the best and get those guys who got you down.
Everything in TNA doesn't always happen in the ring. Throughout our cinematics, there's various areas that the camera focuses on and areas that we want to show the player. So we had to build custom sets to fill out these areas.
We did this rundown, horrible-looking hospital in Mexico where your character ends up. That was just great fun because we were able to just, chip paint on the walls. All of the equipment is like rusted and horrible looking, and we were able to do cool things with the lighting, and it was a very small scene, so everything was very focused. We were able to just really pack in a lot of really interesting details.
Thanks for watching this exclusive behind-the-scenes look at TNA Impact, the video game. Now, go play the game. except for Thursday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern, Spike TV. Thanks.